All right, so,
We're gonna open up the Water and Sewer Commissioners meeting, March 13th, and it is 3:15. Present is Keith Waniaz, Colin here, Bob Josie, and Assistant Manager Bob Sullivan.
skip the meeting minutes.
And we're gonna skip over the approval of minutes and meetings, and we'll go on with Bob's Water and Sewer report.
Do you wanna do the 10th on the minutes?
Yeah, why don't we do the 10th?
January
That,
10th?
yeah, the January 10th one was okay, so. And that's just you and I, Bob, that read that one. Colin was absent. I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from January 10th, 2024.
Second it, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
All right, so monthly sewer report. February report, we had 1.53 inches of rain, 6.752 million gallons of flow through the plant for an average of 232,856 gallons per day. Cindy Grove took 87,000 gallons of waste. We wasted 188,230 gallons for an average of 6,491 a day. We used 1,253 gallons of alum, 0 gallons of sodium hydroxide, 374 kilowatt hours of electricity, and the river average was about 98.856 cubic feet per second. And we basically had average temperatures for the month. Waiting for the annual laboratory equipment calibration proposal, and we passed the first quarter toxicity testing. Any questions on sewer?
Nope.
For the flow for January, we had 6,589,000 gallons of flow for an average of 212,584 a day. Used 489 gallons of KOH. Used 202 gallons of batch chlorine solution. All the samples came back good from the collection on the 7th. No system repairs, monthly maintenance, tank inspections, pH calibrations at all the stations. Meters replaced. We had 8 meters replaced, and then upgraded new ones with wire and radio. We did 3. Did 3 final reads, 3 new connections and meter installs, and we did meter reading for billing, did some service line inspections for the lead service line inspection program, and you get the inspection sticker for the new 350. Any questions there?
I guess maybe just because it's not in the report, just curious about the school meter without going too far off course.
Oh, for the exception meter?
Yeah.
So I met Kurt up there, we went through all the plumbing.
Yeah.
There was a couple plumbing questions that he had prior to finishing that survey. I did get in touch with Jeff and we got that squared away.
Yeah.
Figured out where the meter needs to go, so now I just need to get them a proposal for the price for the meter and the stuff that we need with that, and they'll have to get a plumber to install it.
Okay.
So he came in with a recommendation on where it needed to go and how it needed to be set up.
There's only one line going in and out of that building, right, for the sprinkler?
For the sprinkler, yeah. Yeah, the irrigation branches operate over near the main meter,
Mm-hmm.
so they have a separate line with a booster pump there.
Oh, that'd be easier.
Yeah, it'll be a lot simpler than it could have been, yeah. Alright, that's all that. So, on to budget discussion. So how did you wanna proceed on that?
Well, this one, from the last budget meeting we had, it was just, there was some questions I had on some of the line items.
Yeah, do you remember which ones they were? Cause I put so many marks on my
I do.
papers.
One was, public work supply on the sewer salaries, I mean, on the sewer side. $53,300,
Public works supply.
yeah, I had a question mark after that.
53,300 or 55?
55,300,
Okay.
I think we my other classes.
All right, so what was your question on that?
Be my cheaters. We were looking up, there was a question mark on ones I put, you were gonna check into, see why the number changed, or what it was for.
So why I went up on it?
You, yes,
Okay.
it went up,
So it was
5,000, it was 15,
It was 15.
but was it something to do with, let me double check here. Let me just put myself here. So it was 15 and went up to 20.
Yep.
Now, let's see what the supplies I got added. Can't even see it on here. Can't even see it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, we expended 12. So that was a question, yes, on that one.
So we're at like 12.7 right now.
Yep.
Those are chemical deliveries. We've had 3 deliveries as of January. I think we just had one, so there's one that probably isn't on the books, and there'll be another one before the end of the fiscal. And that, currently, we're only expending for alum. As you see on the reports, we've been reporting 0 on the sodium hydroxide. The sodium hydroxide we'll start using again once we get that system back up and running, but we gotta repipe it from the tank, and we wanna put a day tank in instead of using off a 3,000 gallon tank. So if you're drawing off a 3,000 gallon tank and you have a problem, you drain 3,000 gallons into the system. It was a terrible design from the beginning, so once we repipe all that and get a day tank in, we'll start using the sodium hydroxide again, which is gonna probably come close to doubling this expense.
Okay.
So 20,000 is probably on the light side.
There was something else. There was something else, was it? I'm trying to remember when we talked about that. Was it picked up somewhere else? Some of the other categories that was coming out of that?
Like I said, the only thing out of that line item is the chemical delivery.
That's the only thing.
The only thing that's being
Okay.
charged to that account.
All right, so that one's all set then. That one, that's what the answer was on that?
Yep.
Just the, okay. That one resolved. And then there was one that was, other supplies,
Yeah, other supplies.
which you had 0.
Or I raised it.
I raised it, no, that was, no, 12,000, it's carried it the same, but
Right.
there was something, there was question on what was in that, and then you would thought it was something else. $12,000, and we only spent 1,000 of that.
We've spent 4,000.
Yeah, this is on the one that had this date, and this was dated.
Yeah, so some of this is, it's supplies for the labs and stuff. So, like, we haven't got into the disinfection stage of the treatment plant yet. So that happens in the spring, and Peter will do his ordering coming up currently, because there's shelf life on the reagents and everything.
Okay.
So all the stuff that he has to order to do the bacteria testing to make sure the UV system's working effectively. Those are
Actually, yeah,
some-
no, that's what my question was. We spent on FY '23, it was 13,000, so that was the question, should that have gone up a little higher? in FY '23.
Oh, yeah, and I didn't raise
Yeah,
it.
you kept it at 12, so that would have been the question on that one.
Yeah, so I didn't have I don't have 23 sheet as to what we expended and if there was any out of the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to, I can get Lee to print me that right now. I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, if it's, I mean, it's only $1,000 difference, but I didn't know if it was, if we needed to jump it up for any reason or reduce it.
Yeah,
I don't want to waste a lot of time on it.
no, I think I'll stick with the 12.
Okay. What was the other? Okay, well, what are the?
So on the new one, I did increase the stipends, we got that covered.
Okay,
I did go up, I went up 500, but then I had to go up another 5 to make it 1,000 on the non-energy utilities, so that's in the new one.
okay. Health insurance, you got that number from Gene, you had to, because a question on that you needed something from Gene.
So the problem with health insurance is I can't, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
because when we hire people, I don't know if they're gonna take insurance, if they're taking a family plan or a single plan, and I'm actually not allowed to know that, she just gives me a number, but,
Yeah,
so it's a little bit of a guess there as to what that is, and we still haven't got the answer as to if the rates went up. So it's still questionable there, but I don't really have any control over that line item anyway.
I know I didn't have control, we didn't want to plug in a number that's too low or
Right.
too high, or, you know, just,
So I mean, when I get the final number, I'll adjust accordingly, but.
yeah.
Are the, so along with the health insurance, so all the positions, if we were fully staffed or
Are in here.
funded? And
Like I
then-
said, it's a guessing game though.
Yeah, and then so for those positions, just health insurance, you know, maybe she has like an industry standard number of, or you just go with the highest number and hold that.
Well, the rates of I think I did 2 of one and 1 of another,
Yeah,
just kind of rolling the dice, but like I said, I don't have, it's a guessing game, and,
Alright.
and even after they're hired, I'm technically not allowed to know
Yeah.
whether
Right,
they're
right,
taking it or
right.
not,
Yeah.
so,
and it's 3 positions that are
budget.
budgeted?
Yeah.
Alright.
And, want me to just go onto the water side as well, on the questions, or you want to?
Yeah, that's what I'm-
Or do you want to just stay
I'm
on?
just, one more sewer question, so it talked about landscaping.
Yeah, so I did add in there, I know you
Yep.
had requested it, so I added
I did see that in
14 under. So you'll see it in the notes there.
repair and maintenance agreement,
Yes.
cleaning and landscaping
Okay.
for,
So again, just to
Did cut it off on my print, it said per com.
what did it say?
Per com, commissioner.
Oh, for, okay.
So I don't, just your guys' thought with having the ability to do a spring and a fall cleanup type thing. And it'll take at least 2 of those heavier cleanings off of these guys and maybe, I know it's like putting lipstick on a pig, but make this place, just have a little better appearance and get up some of the stuff. And since we're understaffed for that kind of stuff, we don't need these guys taking up time to go out there and pick up sticks.
Right, so just to add to that a little, we had a lot of landscaping damage done.
Yeah.
We got a lot of that taken care of through the gas
Yeah.
project when we cleaned up over here, so over there's better.
Yeah, over there's
Here's better.
Yeah.
And around over there's better, but we
Yeah.
did do a little damage plowing.
Yeah.
But if you look, like coming down the driveway, that's because it's Synagro, but 'cause
Yeah.
they drive off the damn driveway, but they create a rut and the water runs down it and it washes it out.
Yeah.
And then same thing around this island here.
Yeah.
We either driving over it or whatever, we damage the grass, and then when we get the rain, it turns into mud, and all the asphalt's starting to deteriorate along those edges, so really do wanna do something with getting that back up and seeded to get the grass to
Yeah.
take so that it stops eroding
Yeah.
and damaging the driveway.
So maybe this is something that, you know, that they can do, or I don't know if John's gonna have free time this summer or not, not John, Adam, but to do anything up there, but maybe you could do like a, you know, a foot of stone or something around that edge.
Well, I tried stone over there, that didn't work out too well, and I think actually, since that started happening, I know you guys, I know one of you noticed before, but
Yeah.
where the Synagro truck parks,
Yeah, that's
it's
getting
really
worse.
sinking. And I think the water's getting under the asphalt, because like I said, it's getting the gullies there and going down there, and that's why it's sinking, cause it went years without sinking, and then all of a sudden it did start
Yeah,
sinking.
once you get a rod, it's in here.
Yeah, so, I gotta do something with that, but I didn't actually budget anything for that, but I know we had talked about cutting that out with like a
Cutting
concrete
some
pad or
concrete or
something.
something.
So, but I can look at doing something on our own with that, I mean,
Yeah.
we got an asphalt saw, we can cut it up
Yeah.
and form it or something, I just gotta figure out timing wise to get enough cure before the Synagro
Synagro comes.
parks
Yeah,
on it.
Yeah, and maybe if John's got sidewalks he's doing, maybe you can do something.
That's what I was
at the
gonna say,
same
if
time.
we've got more pouring going on and, I mean, if we proceed with the North Street project,
Yeah,
you know, that's
All
a lot of
sidewalks.
sidewalk, so if we have, if I try to figure it out and say, hey, if you got half a truck left over or whatever, just
yeah,
come down and empty it here. We'll try to figure something out on that, but, and I thought of some, you know, whether we form it up and pour concrete along the edge of the asphalt over there,
yeah,
at least that way it won't erode
yep,
where the asphalt is, and we'll save the driveway. And just do something, I don't know if we can swale it or something, so the water comes down, it'll
yeah.
carry down instead of.
Put those curbstones up, but the Synagro guy will hate you.
Yeah, well, we did talk about all our old hydrants, making
Yeah.
a line of old hydrants, let them hit that, that'll.
Anyway, so that was just my thought behind that, since we don't have that position staffed, and you guys don't have the time to be messing around with some of that stuff. So I want to make sure we had the ability to do that.
So that's in there, you know, that's, if you guys agree, leave it in there, I'll leave it in there. If you guys wanna discuss it and give me an answer, I'll go whichever way you say.
I'm fine with that, I'm fine with it, provided that we don't have if we hire a laborer, then obviously the laborer can take care of cleaning
Yeah,
and all that
yeah.
stuff, but if we don't have a laborer, then we need to have something in budget
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, if I don't use it, it just goes back to retained earnings, so.
Yeah. And then, cleaning, is that a,
Yeah, so I just, again, the thought process there to, you know, that just a regular, maybe every 2 weeks, maybe even once a month, I don't know what your thought was to have, you know, maybe this area straightened out, somebody come in, vacuum, clean the restroom on a regular cadence, and then also the other offices, and, you know, it's been a wicked long time since I've been in the back, but that back shower room and stuff, I don't think has probably improved very much over the years, so just somebody to take care of that, and again, that you guys are buried, and, you know, to get in the weeds on some of the small stuff, and we don't have a Willie type position anymore, so I was thinking having some sort of office cleaner or something come in on whatever cadence. I was thinking 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, or what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a disaster over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd look at probably having them come in and do a deep cleaning, especially, you know,
Yeah.
those bathrooms and the hallways and stuff, but
Yeah.
just get that done and then look and see if we can try to get them to keep
All
up.
the power washer in there and hazmat suit.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it's gonna take. I've tried several things over
Yeah.
the past month, but
Yeah. Anyway, so that was just my thought process with that. I don't know what the other commissioners think.
I'm fine with that until we get the staff to. The cleaning, we probably should have a cleaner come in, and, like I said,
yeah,
to clean the bathrooms and get all that stuff done on a
on a
regular
routine basis.
regular
yeah.
basis anyway.
Yeah.
So, and landscaping, I think once we get the labor, I'm fine the way it's.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't realize how much Willie did until he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
only issue I had with Willie is he didn't wanna let you down, so you'd like give him a list of things to do, and he'd be out there trying to do it, and I'm like, Willie, I meant when it was, it's pouring rain, he's out there trying to do some of the, cut some branches off a tree or something, I'm like,
Yeah.
for a nice day, Willie, it's not a priority right now, he's like, well, I don't wanna forget.
Yeah.
Alright, so those were the two, you wanna get onto the water part,
The questions I had on the water.
yeah.
Let's see. So it was,
Oh, lose my paper just sitting.
the only thing is on the sewer one was we had the 10,000 base. I mean, 40,000 is usually normal on that for the sewer.
Is that the repairs and maintenance
Yeah,
contract?
and I had a question, because we gotta do we had a lot of stuff that was in your on the last sheet.
Yeah, so I didn't include any of those things in this item, or in this line item. I mean, that's just routine repairs and maintenance, there's, it's contract, so, I think I went up to 10, cause I had to do the heater, the explosion-proof heater in the Headworks building. And I think that was around 10 grand. But things like, so that's another area that we kinda need to discuss that came up somewhat in between when we were doing budget stuff. It's gonna be a lot more money than we anticipated for the heating systems, so we gotta switch them over to the gas. So we've got gas to all these buildings. This building will be fairly simple, they've got the jet kits and everything to switch them over, change out the orifices. These are newer units, and it's a small amount of piping, and I think they did the calcs and it was okay on the piping. On that building, the piping's too small, cause when you go from propane to gas, you often need a bigger pipe for the gas. Unless they would give us 2 PSI regulators, then we could get by with the piping we have. But Eversource in Massachusetts is a nightmare compared to Eversource in Connecticut apparently, because the contractor that comes in doing the HVAC work just tells them, hey, I need a 2 PSI regulator, they're like, okay, and they give them a 2 PSI. Here, they want letters from the plumbing inspector, they want, you need to justify, give them a list of all the equipment and explain why, and they said that just to avoid changing the pipe size isn't an acceptable excuse to get a 2 PSI regulator. And they say it's a much more stringent process to go through their, whatever process they go through with reviewing all their stuff. It triggers a different level of review. So in order to do that building and the filter building, we gotta change a lot of the piping inside. And then when they went down to look at those to get the kits for the heaters in the filter room, all 3 of those Modine heaters, they're sealed combustion chambers and you can't change out, they don't make kits to change them out, so we have to replace all the units, and they said, these are all original, so they're like the only heaters that we haven't replaced in this place. So it's a lot more expensive for that building than we anticipated, so I gotta replace all those heating units. And then on this one, while they were here, they're like, you've got something wrong with one of your heaters, cause you could smell it. So they went up and looked at the rooftop unit here, and I think it's a combustion chamber, but there's, the back plate or something is rotten. So you can smell it when you're out there if the heat kicks on, that it's not burning efficient. And they said that's original. So that one and those 3 are the only units that we haven't replaced in this place, and he says that one's a safety issue. So that needs
The one in this building?
No, that
Oh, that
That
building.
building, yeah.
because that one has a rooftop, it's a heat and AC unit,
Okay.
and it's the only building that has that style. That building has Modines.
The Modine heaters in that one, right?
Yeah, and the bigger building down there has the big Modine heaters, it's like 500,000 BTU between the 3 of them.
Well, the orifices can be changed on them, can't they? No?
No, he said it was a sealed combustion unit,
Oh, yeah.
and you can't change the orifices on them. So they didn't realize that when they first looked at them, that, they just said, all right, so this many, they were looking at it, and then when they went to get the model numbers to check, and they went up, they're like, oh, you can't change the orifices on these, you have to replace the whole unit.
Those are all 20 years old at least, right?
Yeah, they're 20 now, yeah. So, they're all 20-year-old units and they're in kinda, the little one is in a nice area, but the other ones are in kind of a rough area to have metal equipment in, so. So the HVAC is gonna cost us a lot more than we originally anticipated. I'll try to get some of this done before the end of this year.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Cyclone water heater, that isn't compatible either, so. That, he said last year that should be, you know, you're ready to replace that. So, time-wise, I guess it's okay, but, just as part of this, we're not gonna be able to just switch it over. So, we need to replace that one as well. So, the Cyclone's like 13 grand. The rooftops, I think another 13 grand. And I'd have to look at what he said for a number for those 3 Modine units and the repiping in there. So,
Alright.
like I said, it would have been a little more straightforward and simple if we could get the 2 PSI regulators, but you said you're not the plumbing, you're not the gas inspector anymore, right? So, I know Haas is a little more difficult to get.
And there's
letters
no-
out of, but
No, you know, no waivers or anything because of municipal.
No, like I said, the gas company doesn't care. They said it's a more stringent process. If I could get a letter from,
Well, why don't
The
we-
gas
why don't we
inspector?
Call Haas.
We'll call Haas and
Call
talk to
Haas.
them.
Yeah.
right, so I may be able to get out of some of the repiping, but to be honest, that's the smallest expense out of all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you repipe to the 2 PSI, you get out of the piping, but now we have to add regulators at each heating unit. So, I don't know what the difference in cost is, but, so that's why I didn't reach out to Haas, just because, I think I called you for Haas's number, or whatever, so. But when I was looking at it, I didn't compare all the numbers yet to find out and get them to tell me what it's gonna cost to eliminate piping and add regulators. So you've got, I don't know, 40 feet of piping they have to do, or add 3 regulators. So I'm not sure what the wash is there, so.
Probably gonna change the piping.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking, that's why I said, I'm not even gonna bother Haas, I know. Haas is kind of by the book and stringent, holds the lines, but, like I said, I know when they do them in Connecticut, they call Eversource and say, this is what we need for regulators and everything, and that's what they come in with,
Yeah. Well,
so,
yeah, Mass is
a little more difficult.
difficult on all fronts,
Yeah.
all the time, everywhere. And everything. Alright, so what was the water side, the question we had, I had some question marks on the last meeting was, we raised that 1,000. Oh, repair and maintenance. There was a question on that. You had 0 line item, we had 40.
I kept it even, but that was, I think,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm looking at, yeah, it didn't go up, you kept it even, yeah.
yeah, so what was the question?
I think that was, maybe that was tied to your last sheet too. You said there was a lot of things on the
Yeah,
last
so-
sheet, okay.
So there's things on the last sheet that we need to determine, so
All right, okay, so.
that number will change if you guys move forward on these others, so I think I got another 58,000 based on repairs and maintenance part is tree removal, PRV replacements, building repairs at primary and fence repairs at mobile. Did you drive by mobile?
I did, I drove up and checked it, that's a huge tree.
A big tree,
Huge tree.
and it took out a lot of fence.
I actually seen it from the road when I was going by first, I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
it's like,
I looked down, like, whoa.
Yeah, I know, I pulled up, I'm like, oh,
Then I pulled
geez.
up, I went down and pulled up on the way back, and I was like, whew.
Yeah, that was a big tree. didn't anticipate that one. So we'll look at that list to determine, you know, where we're gonna stand with those numbers, but.
Yeah.
And actually, do you have the number on what we expended on the to date or last year for the fuel,
On
gasoline, on water?
water.
So I don't know if it was one of your questions, but I had to check that, because I went up. It didn't seem to make
Gasoline,
a terrible amount of sense to me.
gasoline, let me see, it does gas, what's it?
So it's
vehicle?
54805,
Yeah, we had
4,000.
4,000, you expended 2,900. So that was 1,405. Today, we spent 1,400 to date. Well, when this was printed.
No,
Last year, we had spent
29.
2,900.
So I still haven't come up with a reason why I went up by 500.
So you had 4,000. That was on which one?
The water,
On gasoline, yeah. No, there's no question next to mine.
there's not one next to yours?
No,
I don't know,
just
just question
check.
myself, because I don't know why I went up 500, so. For some reason I thought we had like we expended a lot more than we did. And I had Lee looking for it, but she couldn't find it either,
So
so.
then what did we spend on sewer? Yeah, we spent 28. We have budgeted 35. Oh, we, yeah.
76, so I went up 4,100, that's the
Yeah,
one
because
that's-
you already expended 3,800, we only budgeted 3,500. That was the question, that must have been the question.
Yeah. No, I had one wrong.
So you must have bumped it up to 500 because of the, we expended 3,800 bucks.
Right.
We only budgeted 3,500.
I went up 4,100 on the
On
suicide.
the sewer, that's why, I knew there was something there that had me questioning something.
So on this, the newest budget you have, I'm not looking, I haven't even looked at that one yet. I was just looking
I
up.
didn't change it on the new one, I left it whatever I had it, just,
Okay.
I knew I had a question on it, and I'm not sure why I put it on the other one, just,
I just want to ask her before.
she hasn't left.
I'm just going off the number, everything he gave us last time, I haven't looked at this
So
one.
he's gonna start running premium.
93 octane. I think that was it, other than that.
There were large increases in the training line items too. I just wanted to ask him about those.
Yeah, he went over that in the last meeting. I think he was thinking on new hires.
New hires.
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe that's what it was. And then he said that everyone was up for, everyone had to do some more training or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I think they have it every year.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, I just need to.
Well, then that shouldn't have changed that much, it wasn't only be the new hires. and everyone.
No, I got an answer now, I can fix the
Yeah.
budget line.
Yeah, you can, see anything you said.
Alright. And I told Lee, we were looking for it, we couldn't find it, because I was looking in the wrong category. The generator, we filled the generator because it's a new generator,
Oh, yeah.
so we filled that fuel, it went under this.
Yes, that's, you told me, that's right. You said
So
that.
it bumped,
Yeah.
and I knew, I'm like, I know
Yeah,
it was, and I
you said
asked,
that at the meeting.
yeah,
You
so I
said that's
asked
why
her,
I-
I'm like,
yeah.
can you find out, and we're looking for Bex, but it was Bosquet's that filled it.
Yeah.
So I was looking at all the wrong spots, but
Yeah.
yes, I
You
just
did
didn't
say
find
that
it.
they had it for that.
So is that really the right quote bucket for that? Not to do Gene's job for her, but.
I know, because it says gasoline, and it wasn't gasoline, it
Well,
was diesel.
Yeah, yeah, vehicle gas.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so,
And that wouldn't have been,
yeah, that's what she just asked me.
that
Should
wouldn't have
we
been
reclass
vehicle
it?
diesel going in there. That would have been
Well, theoretically, it would be off-road diesel.
off-road diesel,
So.
because you're not paying the fuel tax on it.
Right, so they would consider that vehicle fuel, but not for on the road. It's like if you use it for, you know, backhoes or whatever yard equipment.
Alright.
I mean, we could reclass it if we needed to, but as long as we understand that
Yeah, I know.
I don't need to
As long as
raise that
everybody
line
else is
item,
thrilled
so
with it, I'm just devil's advocate.
I hear you, yeah.
Wow.
So I don't have
was
to
looking
go up
for-
that much, I will reduce that back down on the water side.
I was looking to see what other category could go in.
Yeah, that's the,
Unless you wanna keep it, in
Other
case it's gonna be a
expenses,
bad
but-
hurricane year. You may wanna keep that full.
yeah. And actually, that didn't fill it, cause to do the startup, we had to be between a certain, it had to be more than 50%, but less than 80%. So we had it in that range, I couldn't fill it all the way, so we do still have to fill it, but that's why I had a question mark there, so I'm gonna reduce that back down.
On,
I might have went up to the 4,500 anticipating new vehicles or more employees using vehicles more often, but I know I don't need to go to the 7,600 on the sewer side.
yeah, see, I haven't even looked at this other one he just gave us. I was going off of the one,
I didn't change it on the new one, I left that the same, so
okay,
I will reduce it, so
okay.
I'll probably go to 4,000 on that though instead of 7,600. So it's an increase of 5, because for one, I don't know where the gas prices are gonna go.
It's an election year,
I was gonna say, it's an election year, so who knows? So yeah, I'll drop that 3,600.
And we increased, on the water, non-energy utilities,
So the non-energy utilities is the backflow
yeah.
testing. So-
Did we wanna go up with that? You only went up 500, but.
I did, I increased it
To the
another
1,000.
5 to
1,000,
1,000.
okay. I wanna make sure that was one of my notes in here.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because as we were talking through it, I realized there's more that,
Yeah.
more than I anticipated.
And the increase in training,
It's renewal years.
Yeah.
So we renewed, now everybody's gonna be getting their TCHs in again.
okay,
And again, if we hire new people,
Yep.
if they need to get additional licenses, most people, if they're coming for a water job or a sewer job, they're licensed in one, and, I mean, you guys know I cross-train everybody, and I want them licensed in both. So there'll probably be some training expenses there. It's one of the benefits of a non-union department.
Let's see. Oh, public works supplies. You had put in another, was,
15,000,
yeah.
so that
You would put,
was,
you would put about the meters in, if we wanted to do that.
Yeah, so we-
We'd have to get into that discussion.
right, we didn't get into the discussion on the Neptune meters yet.
Yeah,
They came out and did that presentation.
yeah.
I know there was some interest, I didn't know where you guys stood with that, if you wanted to start switching over, if we wanted to do, like, we already use all the large meters, like, all the commercial buildings, all those, we
Yeah.
already use Neptune on.
Yeah,
Just the accuracy on those meters is far greater than the census on the larger meters. They're kind of comparable on the small meters, but like I said, the larger meters where instead of going to a compound meter, typically on large customers, you put a compound meter, so it has a high flow meter and a low flow meter. So if it's low flow, it goes through the small meter, and that increases the accuracy, but the meters are a pain. You're taking 2 readings that she's gotta deal with in the billing software. Whereas with the Neptune meter, you can just put 1 meter, 1 reading, and the accuracy is even better than the compound meters anyway, so,
That's on the large meters.
yeah. And they were a better price on the Neptune meters than the census meters, so. One of our big issues with the census stuff is trying to get the stuff. I mean, I always say 2001, but it was 2021 that I finally just got, like 2 months ago, I finally got stuff that I ordered in 2021 from census. typically when we need meters or radios, it's months and months, you know, we've waited 6 months consistently trying to get stuff. So if we have a project that comes in and they start building out quickly, you know, I don't have time to supply those meters. And the other downfall is if we could say, all right, just buy a bunch and have them in stock, but the warranty, there's a date on the meter when it was manufactured, and that's when the warranty period goes by. So if I buy them and stock them, and then we have them sitting here for 2 years, I lose 2 years of warranty before it goes into a house. So it's not the wisest thing to order all those ahead of time, to have them sitting on a shelf just because they can't meet supply issues. You know, so Neptune, I know I can call him and he can get me 100 meters tomorrow if I need
Yeah.
it.
I think there was still, the uncertainties on that were the billing, running parallel systems with that, and I think there was,
So we've talked about that, and we can run them both through Munis. You know, it's a little bit more work where we get these readings from one and these readings from another, but it will mesh together, and they will come out and go through all that to get that set up. They have a point man that comes out and deals directly with Munis, so that it's not so much Lee sitting there fighting back and forth, because she's trying to fight with Munis, and then she doesn't know what they're talking about terminology or what it's supposed to read for places, and then she's got to hang up with Munis, which is always a nightmare, because then you don't know if you're going to get somebody or you're starting over with somebody else.
yeah.
And then you go talk to the meter people and they say, oh no, that's not us, that's them. So it's a back and forth, where they have a dedicated person that will deal directly with Munis.
So this doesn't do anything for us on large scale changing of meters, this is just simply changing over to just buying.
So like I said last time, I wouldn't go out and just start replacing meters because they're census and we're going to go to Neptune.
Right, because we're talking about the
It's if
percentage
we're
of what
due,
we were.
right, so we had looked at that, I know Lee produced a list, I'm not sure if it's in our package. It was probably in one of the previous ones. We looked at it and I went through it after she gave me the package, and there was a couple years that we went heavy and there's a lot of meters.
Yeah,
But those I'd probably be like, all right, we'll move some to this year and some to this year. And it spreads it out so that we're kind of on a consistent, you know. Theoretically, you should change meters every 10 years, so if we've got, I'll just say 1,000 for round numbers.
yeah,
So we should do 100 a year.
yeah,
So when we're done, then we're starting back over.
yeah. 10 years is a little, that's, I mean, I think typically they warranty them for 20, don't they?
Well, the census meters are warranted for 10, like a direct replacement, and then there's a 10 prorated.
Prorated, okay.
But we're consistently replacing meters with the census meters. They go dead, or you can't read them anymore because the things aren't lined up right, and they're cast in the plastic and you can't change it.
Oh, the plastic ones have a problem. You have a problem with the plastic ones?
Yeah,
Oh,
those are our newest ones.
yeah,
And those are the ones that
the
are
other
the
ones are all
20-year
gone.
warranty, but
Yeah.
we're consistently replacing them.
the other one's not gone, I still got 2 of them, they're getting changed 26, but over in Gilbo, I got 3 of them over there.
Yeah, but it's still a census with the brass head though, right?
No. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We've changed out everything to census. I think there's one Badger left. And
Oh, yeah,
that's-
yeah, mine's a census, they're not the census, but they're not like the new census are all plastic,
Yeah, I know, that's what I got.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Those are the ones you have a problem with, right?
The new plastic ones, yeah.
Yeah,
that's the one with the 20-year warranties. The other one, the brass ones don't have a 20-year
yeah,
warranty. I don't think there's any warranty on the new one, on the old brass ones. But we've been doing the plastic ones since 2012, so we're 12 years into it. So we're probably a little over half has been done to the plastic meters. And like I said, we consistently, every billing cycle, have several that we have to go in and change because the batteries died. Either the batteries died or they're not lined up correctly and you can't get a read.
So now how about the radio reads with the, are they gonna work with the census readers that we have? Can they, when they
So some
talk
of
to each
them,
other?
the problem with census, what they did when they sold you guys the program, they sold you a spool of 2-wire.
Oh, yeah, you
meter
told us
wire.
that.
Census is the only one that uses that, and that's kind of what they did, is kind of pushed you into a corner saying, oh, it's going to be a real big project for you now to switch to somebody else, because you got to replace all the wire and everything. Neptune, I mean, we'd prefer to get the 3-wire in, So when Steve replaces stuff, and if it's an open basement, easy to do, he changes it to a 3-wire now, just so we're prepared for later. Like the 3 on Gilboa that he did today. He put 3 wires, so he got new wire and radio in those. So we switch them out when we can, but there's finished basements on some of them, and you can't get to the wire. Neptune does sell a 3-wire adapter, so they can take the 2-wire, they put an adapter that'll convert it and make it a 3-wire and read that way. So there are fixes for anything that we would run into that we thought would be a problem.
Yeah.
So we can get around those issues. I think some of the question was if you wanted to go to the cellular, they have cellular radios, so we don't have to go out and read. They'll just log on and pull down the read any day. The advantage to those, I think that was a little bit more of an expense. It wasn't huge. I want to say $3 or $5 a year per meter, but it's only the ones that you have. So you can get meters that are cellular, and they can set up so that the customer has a portal,
Yeah.
and they can go in and look at their own usage.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I mean, to me, a meter is a meter, I don't care what it is, but I'm just thinking on the office side, and then, so it's basically supposed, if you're gonna do a transition, it's a smooth transition, not, you know.
That's why I said
chaotic, I don't know.
What is it that Neptune has, a great relationship with Munis one-on-one like that, but Census doesn't?
well, as we see with census support, we don't get crap for support. They're miserable to work with.
All right.
Whereas Neptune is more customer oriented, and Neptune probably has 75 to 80% of the market in New England. Whereas Census is part of that other 20 to 25%, which is Census and about 5 other meter manufacturers. So Neptune really has the majority of the business,
Yeah.
so they probably deal with Munis a lot more than the other meter companies.
Yeah.
How many Neptune meters you think we have in stock right now?
Neptune in stock?
Yeah, do we have anything in stock?
None. I got one sample one out there
Yeah,
that they
that's
gave me.
Just the Census, we're still getting the Census.
Yeah, we haven't switched over.
Right,
so-
I haven't done anything because you guys didn't make a decision.
We wanted to know more about.
Right.
All the questions that
Yeah.
went along with it.
Right, so like I said, I didn't intend to just be like, oh, we're going to Neptune, let's go change all the census meters out. I still don't intend to go anything beyond what, like, we're replacing census meters now. Like you had 3 census meters, we replaced those with new census meters.
Next week, I think. Oh, 26th. No, well, it wasn't today, it was,
It was today.
how do you get in?
I don't know, he asked Lee, he called Lee and said, can you get a hold of Colin, am I supposed to go if he's not here, or?
Well, they rescheduled it.
Anyway, we can talk about that one after, but
I think I got 2 scheduled for tomorrow, is it?
I'm not sure. That's what Lee and Steve handle
I'll
those.
tell you to get 3 Neptunes for him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, but I'm just wondering, because that was scheduled for, we rescheduled to, what day was that? Next week, I think.
I don't know. It confused me too,
Because he
because
said he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it.
last Thursday. Last
I
Wednesday. he couldn't do
I
it.
said I couldn't do it today. I said I can't be there today.
No.
So we're gonna have to reschedule. And I said, then they went to a date, and then Lee rescheduled. I said, well, just give me a couple dates, and I'll tell you if it's good.
I don't know the details on that because I wasn't involved in all the scheduling, but I did question as to. I thought we couldn't do it.
Well, I hope he just didn't go walking into a building and unlocking it without any, especially
Yeah.
me being there.
I'll look into it, but those got changed. He had to cut the top off of one of your curb stops because you couldn't get in it. He replaced that, got all the curbs working. I think he's still looking for one. So the front one was done, the back one hasn't been done.
There's 2 in the front,
Right.
2 meters in the front building, and there's 1 meter in the back building.
Yeah. So he did the 2 in the front. Those are done. So I went over there, but I didn't know how to get in, so I didn't go in. So I just looked for the 3rd curb stop and exercised the valve to make sure it worked. So the 2 valves on your front building work. So those are good, they're cleaned out, you can get on them. I know you were worried about that before.
Yeah, the
If
left.
something had happened.
The right side one, I was more worried about than
Yeah,
the left one. I showed Steve the pictures,
yeah.
but, all right. that's-
So anyway,
yeah.
those are all working and your valves inside work. Um, So yeah, anyway, the Neptune, I don't intend to change any meters that we're not already planning on changing. So I'm not gonna change meters that are still good in service just because we're switching meter companies.
How many Sensus do we have in stock right now?
In stock, we just got a couple more cases in, just because we need to have enough to
Yep.
work on that, but, less than 24 meters.
And do we have an order in place for those already?
For census? Trying to think of what came in. We might have ordered another 2 boxes of each maybe. There's only 6 on the 1 inch, and so we had to make sure we have enough to do the new construction stuff that we know is coming up. But we don't have a terribly big supply of anything. But like I said, I gotta order stuff until we make a decision, so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Alright, so do we have anything else?
Can you just explain the PRV replacement to me?
So the PRV is the valves, the one on Main Street and the one
Yeah.
on West Street.
Yeah, I know the 2 pits. I'm
Yes,
just,
so it differentiates the pressure
Yep.
zones. Those are original as far as I know.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've ever been replaced. When I first started here, I went and looked at them and they were full of water.
yep, I remember that too.
And I asked Dave why, you can't have them underwater because they don't work.
Yeah.
So the next time, after we drained them all down, Dave went to do the meter calibrations, and when he went to do it, he's like, we got a problem, the water's not shutting off. And I said, that's because your PRV's working correctly now.
Yeah.
But they are old, we had the guy come look at them and said they should be replaced. I think I only budgeted for 1, I might have budgeted for 2, but I only intend to do 1 until we get an answer as to whether we're gonna do Main Street over. 'Cause if we're gonna do Main Street, I'll include that as part of that project.
That project.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other one's over on West Street.
West Street at the cemetery. You see the 2 hydrants next to each other,
Yeah.
so the PRV's in between. So I think that's part of the problem, why we may have had that, one of the breaks on Main Street was when we were flushing.
Yeah.
That valve, I don't think operated correctly, so when we were shutting down, that water came rushing from that end, and then it slammed shut instead of, it's got orifices in there to take the pressure and push down, and it takes that pressure to operate the valve
Yeah.
with the differential. And it slammed closed instead of closing slow like it should. So I don't trust that PRV will work correctly. So I just, like I said, they're in rough shape, and it is kind of a critical part of the system to
Yeah.
make it function correctly.
Would that be something that went out to bid, or is that something we do?
Well, we only have one guy that we typically use right now that does all our, because we have PRVs at the water stations too, so there's valves like that operate. When the well turns on, it's got that valve to open and close,
Yeah.
so that if you shut a well pump off, the water from the system doesn't go rushing back
Yeah.
into the well. So we currently have a company that does those for us.
Okay.
All right.
doubling the uniforms, I assume was anticipating new staff
Yeah.
and not an increase or anything like that.
Hmm?
Not like a pricing increase or anything.
No, so we just met with them this week.
Yep.
Me, Gene, Adam, John, we all got together with them to go over the contract because there was some discrepancies between the departments. And we anticipate the price per unit to probably come down a little bit. So theoretically, it won't go up, it should come down a little bit, but that, they're looking at swapping everything out and redoing new contracts, so.
So, looking at this, so you're at, total budget you have is, $1,860,720.99. And now you have a list of things that, so first of all, how are we gonna fund that budget? What is the available revenue, projected on the revenue? What do we have for retained earnings?
So we just did the bill run, the bills actually went out today, I believe, so I gotta look at those numbers to
Yeah.
run them through more. Based on those numbers, we are short to cover this budget. So we do anticipate additional revenue. I mean, these big buildings should be going online, so that should be generating a lot more revenue. I know the smaller of the two big warehouses, they do have a tenant, I believe, that signed. They're in the process of remodeling that building to get them in there. So that will pick up the flow from there. With those two warehouses and the anticipated flow, they'll be up with the top, you know, we currently have 3 top users. They'll be up in that same kind of category there for usages, so it'll add a significant amount of revenue, but probably not enough to cover this. Like I said, we've added some customers. We got North Village and Joseph. You know, those projects are finally full and up and running, which we didn't have a lot of those flows that calculated fully for the year last year. So once I run through all the numbers, get the final numbers, I can start comparing what we had for revenue, the anticipated additional revenue.
Right, so in order to approve a budget, it's gotta be a balanced budget, obviously, so we need to know if this is the number coming into the budget, you know, where the revenue is gonna be and what the, if some of these things in here will be transferred from.
Right, so some of these were, as we discussed in the last meeting, like the engineering, those weren't revenue based, those were out of retained earnings.
Right, so
Or
just
system
for the warrant,
development,
I'm just trying to make it so for
Right.
the warrant article, so that we can make this budget balance out, because obviously it's gonna be supplemented with the system developments or retained earnings to account for all those
Right.
additional things in there. And then I think on all the list of the larger projects that are not included here, and a lot that have to do with that asset management plan,
Mm-hmm.
that discussion, I think, is gonna have to be, that's gonna obviously be, that's gonna be a debt, we have to take debt service on that. So that, we're gonna have to, in my opinion, would be speak with Gene and then also whoever the lenders are gonna be on that, to get what the debt service, come up with a number, we gotta come up with a solid plan on what's gonna get done, what the borrowing's gonna be, what the debt service is gonna be, so we can put that, we can budget that debt service in. And then also maybe if the town's gonna be borrowing or anything, we can piggyback on them on the borrowing. And then,
Right.
the other thing I was thinking on that was, what is the debt? What was it, was there any debt?
Yeah, we have that.
What was the debt on the proposed, so,
Right, so some of this funding will come from retained for debt,
yeah.
or reserved for debt.
So we were pretty well, what was the, because I know it was around 100,000, I thought we had on,
101,658.
yeah. So do you know when that should be dropping off
This year.
this year?
I think this is the last year we pay on it. Might be a small payment next year, but
Okay, So,
But none of that really factors in because so typically what they tell you is you're gonna replace debt with debt. Unfortunately, the way we have it designed, that really doesn't make any difference, and we've already eliminated that fee that we use to collect that debt.
right,
So the way, typically when they say it with taxes is, it's so that it's a smooth transition, you were
Right.
used to paying
Right.
this, now it's gone, but we replaced that with this.
Right.
Where you guys had a separate fee,
right, that was per unit fee, I think, on that.
Right,
Whenever
but-
they set that up.
but that fee, we eliminated that a
'Cause we
few
had
years
collect-
ago, cause we had already
We
collected,
haven't
so.
collected enough.
Yeah,
In order to make that transition smooth, like everybody says you should do on the municipal side, you would have had to do that back a few years ago, the year that we eliminated those fees. You see what I'm saying? So-
yeah, right.
So, we're not really replacing debt with debt.
Yeah,
In
'cause
that
it's-
sense,
'cause they're not- you
because-
don't see it on the bill because.
Exactly, you're not gonna
it's
see it.
Right.
And yes, where that debt's coming off now, so to replace debt with debt, but you still gotta find a funding source, and people are gonna feel that when you,
Well, you'll see it, because it's still being budgeted, it's still in the budget
budgeting,
now.
but we've already
We
collected it.
But I know,
so
so,
people aren't paying for it. So it's not a transition like they say where you replace
Yes.
debt with debt,
Yeah.
so I wanna throw that concept out the window.
yeah. we
So
can't-
this
we
new
can't-
debt would be, the way I would look at it is, and, I'll let you guys make that decision, but
Yeah.
you either do it again where you do that fee, or you establish it in the rates and just kinda come up with a plan as to, we're anticipating a $50,000 a year loan payment or a $100,000 a year loan payment, and
Right,
it's gonna be over 20 years, so you just address that in the rates. And that way the rates will pay that loan payment,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Problem is that it's almost
know,
like,
when
almost
that-
like taxes, it never comes back out.
Right, when
So,
you,
Yeah, once
but
it-
we're
once
different than
they put it
taxes,
in
I
there,
mean,
I know,
taxes, they're limited to that 2.5, and they don't wanna have to do an override, so when they get that extra revenue, they wanna keep using it.
yeah, they don't want the
Whereas
taxes.
here, you're an enterprise fund, and we'll look at the numbers, and if we look at the numbers and say, hey, our revenues are exceeding what we need, we can lower the rates. I mean, that's what you guys do, that's the reason you're here, is to
Right.
look at those and review them. I just,
some-
to be
some-
honest with you, I don't see you going 20 years and not doing a few more multi-million-dollar projects, so I think it's just gonna carry on for far longer than our time.
Yeah,
So I just don't anticipate you dropping those fees off. And to keep doing it as a fee, you eliminate that opportunity to say, all right, we got debt coming off, we can work on this project, and it's just a smooth transition that you don't see. Whereas if we add that $63 fee again, everybody's gonna be like, what the heck, I gotta pay this extra $63, and
yeah.
I just think it's a better planning process to establish it in the rates
So,
and a smooth,
so we should start this process as soon as possible
correct.
for the FY '26 budget, so, and we can have all those numbers, have a rate study done, have the projects that are gonna be completed,
So there
that's
was,
in the asset management plan, and then some of the ones that you have put forward, the bigger ticket one. Also, I think some of those can actually go to capital, I believe, too. I think that has to be submitted by January, I think, though, right? Capital.
I can't submit for this round
No, it's too late.
our warrant
Yeah,
articles and
yeah,
everything are
Yeah,
already,
and the same thing, I think that's why I'm saying we gotta stick to the budget we have, work with the numbers for the FY, for this current fiscal year, for '25.
well, for some of the big projects, but there's stuff on here that needs to be done regardless. They're not huge numbers.
Right, but I still think
But
there's.
some of it
enough-
has to come from retained earnings, but they're one-time expenses that if you wait, we're gonna do it under emergency.
No, we don't wanna be.
And then we're gonna be going to fall
proactive.
town meeting to do it anyway, and we're
Right.
gonna pull from retained earnings, so.
Right, but there's still a lot of things that was built into this budget. There's still some enough flexibility. I think that's things that aren't gonna get, like some of the engineering, things like that, we may not use it, but we may. And then also the salaries we could transfer if we go to fall time, we could transfer from salaries to expenses. If we don't get
Right, if we
the
don't
staff
get-
by
yeah.
then, so that can be transferred over as well. And I think there's enough give and take on some of these numbers that I think that we can make that
If
work.
that's what you think, you
I
can
mean,
try
'cause
it,
the
but
budget only 2 years ago was 1.5 million.
Mhm.
So, I know things have gone
that
up,
was
but there's still,
pre-COVID.
and there's still a lot of, they just haven't, a lot of these numbers still haven't come down to where, back to where it is, because we're putting, like I said, we are putting in more projects than we're building into the budget.
Well, I pulled money out.
Yeah.
I mean, I pulled out 150 on the
Right.
repairs and maintenance for these things. 'cause
Yeah.
That's what you wanted me to do, is pull out the additional stuff, so I brought it
So
down to
we get the
that.
base, right.
Yeah,
But just for historical data, I mean, just, we look at the budget last year was, $1,000,008, 16, the previous one to that was, that was $1,000,005, that was in 22. Then there was $1,475, $1,477. So we're up to, almost $1,000,009 in a matter of a few years. And I know expenses have gone up, but they haven't gone up to that level. We just have to,
14% increase on the Centergrow
Yeah.
contract alone.
I understand that.
That's
right.
not including the trucking and whatever other crap they added in there for fuel surcharges. Because it's in the contract for the fuel surcharges. I mean, I can tell you, you can't build the house that's in front of your house that you built for the same price you built it
No, I know.
several years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, after COVID, every single
Well, I
thing
know
went
costs,
through the roof.
I know costs have gone up, I understand that. But some of them have come back down substantially, but, except the interest rates are, but a lot of the products and things are a little bit higher than where they peaked out at during COVID, when they went way up, when availability of products on everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, vehicles are still through the roof too. They're starting to come down now too, but. So I just think we need to really keep an eye, a tighter eye on some of these things to see why is our budget creeping so much every year? Well, particularly the last 3 years,
Right, yeah.
which COVID did have a lot to do with that.
And the inflation.
Yeah. Yeah, well, inflation the last 3 years. Okay. But. But I don't know how much more, I don't know how much, without having the numbers in front of me to say we're gonna generate
I
this much
couldn't
money.
generate numbers until we made decisions on what projects are gonna move forward.
Well, no,
So,
what revenue we have to work with.
that's what I'm saying.
That's what we need to know. We can't finalize a budget unless we know what revenue we have.
Well, until we did the billing, I don't know what the revenue was either, which is this week.
Yeah.
So,
Well, projected revenue, usually we get historical data on that. And then what we have for retained earnings, what we have in system development, what we have in
yeah.
all those accounts that are used for a lot of these things that we could plug in if we need to. So, I don't know what. And then, like I said, a lot of the other bigger ticket items, that's gonna be a discussion, I think that has to be with the asset management plan that was done. I don't know how they expected, how did they expect to get funding for that FY 20, what did it say,
24.
24, when we're going into FY 25 budget?
Yeah, I know, they look at, I mean, just my opinion on looking at how they do that, they look at it as if you're a private business.
Yeah.
And you can just, oh, yeah, we gotta fund this, you know. So I'll go back to them, but, you know, they did somewhat of a rate study in there, they just did a quick synopsis. I told them not to do the full rate study until we finish the water one, which we'll be doing through this summer and having it planned for the fall. When they do that, then we'll have both sides, because they want to do the full rate study, but they're looking at what we have in retained earnings,
Yeah.
and they're just like, all right, you got all these projects, you got this much in retained earnings, we're gonna use it, but that retained earnings is both water and sewer retained earnings, so you can't spend it all because you did this study first, and then you come to that one and be like, oh, well, you guys don't have any money. So, you know, I told them, hold off, do the rate study once we finish both projects, so you can look at it as a whole, instead of oh, you have all this money, we're gonna use it for these projects that we identified.
Yeah,
So I didn't think it was fair and equitable, if you wanna call it that, to just focus on one when they're using a combined
yeah,
fund.
that's in both, right. I agree with that. But I still think it needs to be, that asset
Yeah, there's-
that asset management plan that you gave us, along with some of the additional things that you had put in there, in order to keep the rates at a stable pace, that you have, I mean, you gotta forecast that out 5 years and say, okay, let's look at this on a 5-year plan and say, this is, I mean, we can't every year make a knee-jerk reaction and say, well, we need another million to do this, and then, what are you gonna, I mean, where's it gonna come from? You can't just raise rates and then, well, no, next year we don't need that, so lower rates, or, you know, it's gotta be,
Gotta be consistent.
right,
Oh,
it's
we're
gotta
not
be based on a 5-year.
We're not consistent with raising them anyway. We don't go up every year. It's been, what, 2 years now? So,
It's 3
yeah,
years.
3 years since we've raised rates, so it's.
It was
we're not-
3 years this time.
Yeah, so we're not consistent with raising the money, you know, as it is versus if we went up a couple of percent.
Right, so you're trying to level
Each year,
fund
yeah.
based on 2021, which
Yeah.
is when COVID hit,
So
which
that's-
Yeah.
everything went through the roof since then, so
Yeah.
Well, I'm not level funded on 2021,
2021, we raised the rates.
yeah,
And we haven't raised them since, but 2021 was when COVID hit. We established those rates at the very beginning before prices changed before COVID had an effect on any of the prices.
that was for FY 22 or 23 budget, when that went to. when
We
that-
did it in this time of year, 2021. So it's 3 years ago, right now. So 3 years ago, in 21 was when COVID hit. We were finalizing that because we were up at the town hall
We're up at the town hall.
with masks on, doing the budget hearings, or the rate hearings, because COVID had just hit. So when we did those, we were using numbers from pre-COVID to establish those rates.
So it would have been for the
So-
FY 22 budget then. If you did it in 21, it would
Right.
have been for 22.
Like I said, those were established 3 years ago at the beginning of COVID, when we were using numbers from 20 and before to establish those rates. So we haven't made any changes in rates or
Well, it would have been, the
The
rates would have
effects.
been, if it went into effect for FY 22, you would have been basing it off the FY 22 budget. If you were raising the rates in FY
the
21.
proposed 22 budget that was
Would have been-
pre-COVID, before
been
any expenses
before it
were
was toward
into
22.
effect for 22.
You would have had to do the rate study.
Okay, but I didn't anticipate all the expenses from
For
COVID going up
2022.
prior to the prices going up. So we did the rates and established them prior to any effects of COVID. So what I'm saying is all the effects of COVID have not been adjusted for in the rates at all. But all of our
What
expenses
year
have
was-
gone up.
What year was, the COVID was what, 20,
21.
21?
March.
2021.
Well, March of 2020. was
Right, so
COVID,
that's my
and
point,
So
that's
we
my
were,
point.
we were still
You did,
into COVID in in 2021.
right,
And
so you did the budget for the FY 22, which that rate study would have been, when you raised the rates, would have been for the FY 22 budget. Is when it would have started. It wouldn't have the other
I'm
previous
just,
years.
right,
So
but we
those
didn't
wouldn't affect
anticipate
that.
the increases from COVID
You would have had to.
when we prepared that budget.
Well, not even so much the increases of
had to.
COVID, but we weren't really anticipating. I think the biggest thing with COVID was the supply chain stuff. But then the increases that you end up with currently with the inflation and the cost of everything through the roof with inflation, I think is what hasn't been anticipated in that rate. Versus if, instead of doing rates every 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, I think there needs to be a consistent rate increase every couple of years anyway, at least to adapt for the
Right, inflation,
changing
obviously, yeah.
inflation and everything we're into now. And unfortunately, the price of stuff isn't,
No, it's not.
it's not gonna go down, I mean, you get your fluctuations with gas and fuel and, but I don't think you're gonna see the cost of pipe or any of that kind of stuff go down, or the rates that you have to pay people now, I mean,
Yeah.
you're paying people, what's the inflation rate was what, 9% or something they were saying, so when you say people got 3-4% raises or stuff, so you're paying more, and you're not gonna see people's pay rates go down.
Yeah.
If in the next year inflation goes back down, you know, we're stuck at this pay raise to it.
It's never, right, it's never gonna drop
That's,
back.
that's not gonna drop back.
Yeah.
I'll go back to paying bus drivers 15 an hour. They'll hang me. But I just, you know, I just think that we need to be a little maybe more consistent with the, you know, with the rate increases. Like you said, a 5-year plan on this instead of doing it all at once is, but a gradual across the board. you know.
So we can adjust accordingly with the rates, if you did it every 2 years,
Yeah,
like you were
so,
saying.
so like maybe if we'd gone up, you know,
So we
for
know.
last year anticipating this budget, you know, it might not look as, to try to balance it, might not look as cruddy.
But that's what the tie and bond study showed.
Yeah.
It was what your increases should be for the next 5 years. And I
Yeah.
think they were averaging 10+% per year,
Yeah,
every year for the next 5 years.
yeah,
And that's just based on the sewer asset management. So we won't know what their projection and they'll come in here and do a whole dog and pony show and answer all your questions. But like I said, I wasn't gonna have them do that for only half of it, trying to expend all the retained earnings for one part of the
Yeah, we don't-
department. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you gotta look at the, what the water department brings in also.
So they'll do the same thing, but like I said, it'll be a little more involved and a lot more data for you to work with at the end of this year.
Yeah, but if you can do it where it's, like I said, and it's broken out into the year, they do have the percentage, I did see that. But the rate studies, so we can look at it and say, okay, when we raise the rates every, I mean, I don't wanna say every year, but,
Well, I thought we were
That's what
talking
they're
about
gonna
raising
propose to
rates
you,
every
but-
year.
huh?
Didn't we talk about raising rates
Well-
every year a little bit?
We talked about just going cost with inflation, you know, obviously, we should go up every, 2.5%, whatever that
Yeah.
is. To stay, all the expenses go up, so you have to go up and our expenses go up as well. And I understand that. But we have to, I think, we still have to, there still has to be, with the large expenses coming down the line and the plant getting over, like you told us the last meeting, that we have to put together a larger picture over 5 years and then figure in the rates, so we know what the rates are gonna be 5 years out. So we can project out 5 years and make it as smooth as transition as we can possibly make that happen.
Yeah.
But I don't wanna say, let's spend $1 million and then, you know, raise the rates this year to go to that, and then next year it's too, I don't wanna do the knee jerk
No.
at the end of, I mean, we're at the 11th hour at the moment for the budget. And I don't think we have time to really get into all this stuff to even get, because I mean, the article that's gotta be submitted
So
very soon.
I gotta go to FinCom in like a week.
Right. So, I mean, I'm not comfortable trying to digest all that and throw together a number quick and say, this is what we're gonna do. I mean, I'm comfortable with, I'm comfortable working with the projected revenue we have. Look at what we have for retained earnings to make sure it's whatever's coming out of here for all the projects they have built in here. And then all the other revenue sources that are available for the budget. But I don't know what else, I don't know what else to say, that's where I'm comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable jumping into these big things without a full discussion and really look at how it's gonna affect the rates. So I'm not gonna approve a budget without knowing what the rate's gonna be.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that, you know, for this asset management, these projects for the plant being older and stuff like that, I mean, that's definitely a debt service. You know, all the way, you know, at least the first 3, you know, the first 3 line items, and then, you know, line item number 5 probably. You know, I think that's all, I would see those items as definitely like dead items, you know. You know, and then these other capital items, I understand why those are there. But like, we've got one PRV built into this budget already, so, you know, we do the next PRV maybe the next year. So then you're looking at a debt service that's not so, you know, it's not that big number at the bottom.
I mean, I'm not saying that none of these have to, I know this stuff has to get done,
Mm-hmm.
but I also know that we can't, we gotta plan this out a little. Because I don't know what this is gonna project on the budget, I mean, on the rates. So how can I approve a budget without what the rates are gonna be? And whether, you know, we have to work with what we have. We have to work within our budget currently with our revenue that we have.
Right.
And I'm not gonna approve something that speculating on raising the rates that I don't know what it's gonna be.
Right.
And how do you, I mean, I don't know how, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I don't feel comfortable doing that. I have no problem approving a budget, balanced budget based on available revenue that we have to work with. So, that's where I'm at with that. So, I don't know how you want to proceed on that. And I think it's the timing is the problem, is we're at the 11th hour with this. So what would be your recommendation?
What is my recommendation for what?
To give us a balanced budget. Like, you're gonna have to obviously look at the revenues and come back and say, this is what we have, this is what we can do.
Yep.
This is, if we need to do a rate increase, but I don't wanna do a rate increase this year and then have to do another one next year and then just without all this uncertainty and all that stuff going on.
No, well, I think when you get your rate study done, they're going to tell you, you need to raise the rates every year for,
Mhm.
at a minimum, the next 5 years. And they'll give you percentages, which is gonna be a lot higher than what they
Okay.
had in that sheet.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, I know you don't wanna raise rates, but the expenses are
I'm
the
not opposed,
expenses.
it's justified, I don't like making a decision not knowing what it's gonna be. So we have a budget in front of us that we don't know what the rate, how that's gonna impact the rates if we approve, you know, another $1,342,000. I don't know what that's gonna affect, how that's gonna affect the rate.
Well, this is a complete list. And like I said, we need to go through and you guys need to make decisions on which ones you wanna move forward with. I've explained a lot of these multiple times throughout the project or the process. There's things on here I'm telling you need to be done. And replacement of silencers, all right? That's not a critical part. There's a second part of that will capture the birds before they get into the equipment and blow out blowers. So that can come off as for this year. I'm putting it on here so that you know these things need to be done. So next year when I bring it up, you
It's
say,
the time, it's not
the
the, I
first
know,
thing.
I know it's on it, but it's the timing of when we see it.
Right.
That's the problem I have with it. 'Cause I'm not doubting, because I mean, that's been,
We've
that was,
discussed
that
several
was
of
the
these
same,
for
that was the
many
same,
years.
that was the same thing as last year. I have the previous years
Yeah.
that we can go through on a lot of those and see.
That's fine. There's things that come up throughout the year that, you know, the piston grit, it needs to be repaired. It's leaking oil in the bottom, you're gonna burn it out. I put 25,000 in here for repairs to get us through. They put $300,000 or $400,000 to replace it.
Right.
So that's a big difference from doing repairs on something to get more
Right,
life
to
out of
replace
it.
it.
Or I don't do this, it fails, and then we're replacing it at $400,000 without notice, without a loan, and it just has to be done.
Well, again, we know that is coming up, that would have to get replaced. So, again, back to the 3-year plan, there should be at least, I'd like it 5, but if it was a 3, and then every year, a year gets added on, because you know this is gonna come up in the next 3 years. That's just the consistency of that. So it's a lot easier to prepare for and budget. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking for,
I hear you.
you know, and a lot of the stuff, we don't know the numbers until we see them. Like some of these things, and some of these are probably on, I'd have to look, but I would assume the ones that didn't get done last year are on some of the, on this
Yep.
sheet.
So there's carryover, I put them on here,
So those, to
in
me, would
case
be.
they don't
that would-
happen this year.
Right, so that would be, those, I would assume that those would be the priority.
Yep.
If it wasn't done in the current budget,
It's gotta be done now.
it's gotta be those, I mean, if you're trying to follow a 3-year plan.
Yeah.
Do we have this year and how this year's tracking? Current?
Current budget?
I have up to, I don't know when, this was the last budget meeting, it's not dated.
Like jeans.
Like James?
I have the actuals. So I guess I don't know, I mean, even it's 1.8, without adding that last year, at 1.86722, 99. Do we have available revenue to support that without even getting into the
Right. That's what I was
the
gonna tell you.
next page?
If you're going with what available revenue we have, you're not covering any of these. But they're gonna happen. They're gonna fail. We're gonna do it under emergency. It's gonna cost 2 to 3 times as much. And you're gonna have to pay for it. It's gonna go to fall town
I
meeting
know
and
that,
pull
but
it from
that's
retained
because it's
earnings.
not, that's because it hasn't, it's not proper planning, that's, well, that's.
The proper
that's
planning,
knee-jerk
every
reaction
year I
is why.
tell you, we gotta do these additional projects. Some of them you blow off, some of them we move forward. But you wanna start with the base budget, and that's what you wanna base rates on.
No,
You say, I don't
no,
wanna
that's
factor
not-
these
that's-
in.
That's incorrect. I want a base budget to know where we're starting from, and then add the additional things to that. Which,
I can tell you, and I'll go back and find it in meetings if you would like, but this sheet was born because you wanted a base budget, and that's what rates are set on. And then these are outside, and you don't wanna count them because they're not every year expenses. You don't wanna count them as part of the rates.
but that's what I would like, yes, but
But
that's
there
not,
is
that's not.
always
that's-
projects, and
that's
I
not-
explained that previously.
And this is not a base budget. This is not the base budget. There are things there are a lot of things in here that are not, are not just reoccurring expenses in this 1.8.
Right, so
So that would be, if you were doing a true zero-based budget, and then add the additional things that we know are just gonna be a one-time expense, or one time every 5 years or 10 years. And I have, I don't know if I brought.
what you came up with for the base budget?
No, just looking back, going back a couple of years. I have back to, I didn't bring the ones, I left the folders at my desk. I have them going back to 2020 or 2021. And then, because I always say, make sure you pull out, you go back to the base budget, make sure every year you pull out what's not going back in there, so we know where we're starting with that actual cost of that line item. Then it's a lot easier to prepare a budget. It's simple, actually, when it gets to that, if you know exactly who you are on stuff. Like, we don't need to know 90% of this budget is electric, Synagro.
Right.
We know it's just whatever the cost goes up on the,
Sorry,
so it's
I'm
only
having trouble understanding right
so-
now.
a lot of the projects, which is on the back sheet, that we gotta try to tie into that. I know expenses go up, but again, I deal with that on a daily basis on stuff, so I know that goes up. Well, here's 2023. That was, so I was trying to track it for a couple of years, but then it was getting confusing. That basically I would say, okay, this is what, we knew that, say, I'll use an example, was Synagro was, I'm gonna round to $100,000. I would say, okay, we knew what that was, whatever line item that came out of. And if there was something else in that particular line item that we knew was gonna be one-time expense, then I would say, I would have a note next to it saying, okay, this is a one-time expense. So you always knew, you knew what your bottom number was gonna be on every line item. So you didn't have to really go through all this and try to figure it all out. And what happens is some of them, it never gets back to the base, and then, was this done? I don't know if that was done, was this done? Then, well, we carried this over. So it's very, it's sometimes it gets confusing on how that happens.
But you wanna use a base, just take for instance, professional and technical consulting,
On which one now? Personal tech?
water, it's probably the same on sewer, but.
Okay. Okay, so for every would have been a base, would have been 25,000.
25.
Yeah.
So you say, I wanna use that for a base, cause anything outside of that is not the same as last year.
Historically, I would based on historical numbers,
Right.
what we kind of.
And I'm telling you that
on
the regulations say under UCMR 5, we have to do this testing. And it's
Yeah.
gonna be testing that's gonna move forward. Our new permit, our sampling schedule
And we
shows that we
budget
have
for
to
it.
sample for PFAS.
Yeah.
That's what a $10,000 increase is for.
Right.
But you're saying we didn't get back to the base of 25. You're not gonna get back to a base of 25, because we now have to sample for PFAS every year for now and forever. And it's
If-
probably gonna go up more after the UCMR 5, because there's 29 more PFAS compounds that we have to test for.
Right, so that changes the base number. So
Right,
that-
but you're saying we don't get back to the base, but the base changed.
No, that's on one, on that example.
Just-
That's on one example.
I-
But I could give you 4 examples where the number never gets back.
Okay, I would wanna see them, but there's additional expenses that come up every year. And your base number's gonna change, just because I buy a set of tires for the F-250, and you say
Base-
that's a one-time expense, well, next year I buy them for the 350, and the year after that I buy them for the other 350.
You know, you gotta go back to
So-
historically. The historical numbers that have particularly trended with, and then obviously when it's getting close, obviously, gotta get bumped up. Unless you got something special in there, where, like you just said, the PFAS is gonna be perpetual. We gotta do that every year from now on. Okay, now they know that just changed that number to this number. That's understandable. But it's the ones that don't have to get done again, that get pulled out. Not carry that number forward and start from the next budget with that number that doesn't have that in there, unless you're using something else that's getting added to that line item, that's gonna increase that base number again. In some years, maybe it won't, might jump up $50,000 for whatever that particular item might have been, but it's gonna go back to historical numbers that average $25,000 historically over the last 5 years. That number's just a reoccurring expense. So, I mean, if the board wishes to, I would like to know before I approve a budget, how much the rates would have to go up to support a budget. That's me. If you guys think differently, then, you guys
you're right.
can approve a budget, but I'd like to know what it's gonna cost everybody when we approve a budget. And making sure we live within our means. And if we can't, then we need to adjust the revenue accordingly.
So what are collections for 24, do we know?
I'd have to add them, I didn't probably got them over there, but I didn't pull all the numbers together yet. Cause there's a lot more to it than just the 2 billing cycles, cause
Yeah, no, there's all the fees and everything,
I
so.
don't, I don't have any of those from Gene yet.
So there is a report in here, which I thought was in here. It is. So on February 5th, the report was run. Actual year-to-date revenue,
Oh, I think I have one of those.
1,833,655. And that was from February 21st. It's a massive report. So much this part, I'll show you.
I don't have that.
Yeah, you took yours home. You got the revenue?
Yeah, so this is what I'm looking at.
I got the whole package here, so.
Just trying to figure out which part of it. So it's easier to go to the back and come up 3 pages from that. Or if you just want to look at this one and see if I'm looking at the right one. But
The whole thing?
that's the whole thing, but right where your finger is.
This is the expense. This is expense. These are expense reports, so this is what we spent, not collected.
I'm just going by that revenue line. That wasn't what I thought it was.
My
All this
recommendation.
is the expense, this is all the information that Colin requested for the
Yeah.
original meeting.
Right. Which was helpful. That was, a lot of that too was my, that was,
You came up with for your base, for
yeah,
recurring.
for, right. And that was to help you as well. I remember that when we were standing up in the office discussing it. They asked if there was anything that we could help. I know you were busy with things that would help the budget process.
Yeah, there's no revenue reports on any of that.
I mean, my suggestion would be that, Bob, look at all the revenue laid out. Put a balanced budget forward with and where the revenue's gonna come from to support the budget. Present that to us, and then if there's, on this last page of if some of these can't be put into the budget, or if they can be shifted around, or whatever you see prioritized, and you run you know what is more of a priority than we do.
Yep.
And then you could say, if we would like to do this, we would need to raise and appropriate additional outside of the revenue that we currently have to support the budget for the FY25. We would have to do a rate increase, a rate study for, not, well, it wouldn't not be a rate, it'd be a rate increase or a rate study to
To do an actual rate study, if you're not gonna use the ones from the asset management, it's about 25 grand. So
No.
we need the budget to do a full rate study if that's
No,
what we want.
no, you're missing, so the additional items that you're requesting, this would have to, we have to raise and appropriate money to support, where are we gonna get that money from? All it has to be from rates. So whatever that number,
Rates or retained earnings.
but I'm assuming you're gonna use retained earnings with some of this budget anyway. So then if you're using retained earnings on some of these, that's fine too. And then we would say if it's not, obviously if it's not being used with retained earnings, then you'd have to raise the rates to generate X number of dollars of revenue to support this portion of the budget. For the billing side. And then try to come up with a number what
So-
that, try to come up with a number what that would be.
So if you want me to propose things like that, then we need to make decisions, and I've mentioned this multiple times in these meetings. Especially things like pumps. We've got, a spare waste pump, we got 3 of those. A spare EQ pump, we got 3 of those. Spare sludge pumps, we got 2 of those. Plus the 3 pump stations. This is just pumps down here so far. So, I told you before.
Retained earnings, that would come out of,
But
that's
see,
a,
you're saying retained earnings, and I say otherwise, because
well, system
you've got
development.
20-year-old things, you're trying to find another funding source, and I keep telling you that you've got 15 years, if you bought a pump every year for 15 years, that's a budget item, that should come out of rates, you should adjust your rates to cover a pump every year for 15
Why isn't that,
years.
then why is that in here and not over here?
Because you keep telling me to take things out that are not, we don't buy every year, we haven't bought them every year, we haven't bought them at all. I keep telling you, we have this
Well,
many
then,
we
if you put
need
that,
to buy.
if you put that and say we need to get one of these every year, and that's part of, built into the budget, then I would say, okay, then why
Right.
isn't it over there?
We can go back and I can show you in the meetings. I've said it. I said it in the meeting. This is how many pumps we have. We have like 15 pumps. You should plan on a pump every year. It should be in your rates.
Build that into one of the line items, that's where it's supposed to be.
Okay, but I haven't spent them. I haven't bought pumps. You wanted to pull out. That's what all of this was. You said go through all of this and only pick the things that are recurring. I don't have a recurring pump line in because I haven't bought pumps every year. I keep telling you at the meetings, you should
Then you-
factor these into the rates.
Then you tell me what, for a pump, because you know I'm never gonna disagree. If I know something has to get fixed, I'll never disagree. I never do. If something needs to get
understand
fixed, I always say, then fix it. We need something, we need it. But if you have to put it in the budget, and if it gets questioned, you seem to say, well, we have to buy a one pump every year, we have to budget for, so that base number is now this. That's what the base number is for. That's where it all comes from.
Well, the base number doesn't come for me telling you that I project that we should buy a pump every year in the future, which is why it's pulled out. And when it's pulled out, and I go through this list and I tell you,
Well, I think.
This
we
should be
disagree.
budgeted.
We could agree to disagree on that, because
Okay.
a base budget, a base line item is something that needs to get done every year. You know, if you're gonna need it every year, it should be in that.
and I've explained that. That's what I explained at the meeting. It is not in our base budget, but it should be. I've said that at other meetings. It should be, but you wanted to go and you had Lee print out everything that we've spent, and you even had her highlight what are recurring costs.
Mhm.
So that's what you want to start with for a base. It's not a recurring cost because we haven't bought them.
Right. For myself and for you, that was to help you along to get in the budget, so you knew exactly what it was trying to simplify that process for you. So you knew exactly what the reoccurring expenses were, and you could obviously put the budget together, and you could say, well, this is not a reoccurring expense, but it's still built into the base budget because it's every year.
And that's what I explained at the last meeting.
Then it should be in that line item for the base budget.
Okay.
If it's a reoccurring every year, then that's where it should be. And I'm not gonna debate, I'm not gonna disagree with you on that.
Right. Same thing with tree removal, and I had said that before. And same thing with sewer repairs. I had in there for the last 3 years. I told you we should budget X amount of dollars every year for repairing sewer manholes. I've said that each year. We don't put it in the base budget because you want them separated to show that outside of the base. But I keep telling you every year, we should budget for that every year. And every year I just add it in again as another item that's outside of the base budget. But I said it over and over again. These are items, tree removal, sewer repairs.
Right.
They're not the same repairs every year, so it's not a recurring, in a sense that we have it as a recurring charge. It's things that I've said in the past that this should be budgeted every year, and we do so much every year. But every year you say, pull this out because this was out of last year's.
No, because
Extra.
I'll tell you how that started, if you want me to get into that. It started getting into that because we were putting this in, that was stuff that was supposed to be done every year, and it was just staying in there, but it wasn't getting done. So I said, if the things aren't getting done, then they need to come out, and then when they do intend to be put in there and get done, tell us, and then we'll put that money in there. Not just putting it in. And if it's not getting done, there's no sense, we're budgeting, and it's, money just floating.
It's not flowing because I don't say
No,
I put
floating,
it in and then
floating,
say
Floating, not just flowing. If it doesn't get done, it's not carried
it goes
over.
back to retained earnings
back.
and then we rebudget it again next year.
Right.
Right, that's what we were doing.
But
So,
to
same
me,
with this.
but then I question some of the, I guess, somebody could put in a budget and put a lot of things, we're gonna do this, and all these different things. And if you only get half of them done, then why we budget for them in that fiscal year? Why don't we just say if it's not getting done, budget for them when it's appropriate to do it? And that was how this whole thing started on the base budget. And I was at that point, getting to that point on the salary, because we've been budgeting, and it's not there.
So you want to pull them out until we do them and then budget?
No. I want to budget for them to do it.
Okay, so you tell me how to get it done. I'll spend the extra $100,000 to have the engineers come in and put a bid package to put these out to bid so it gets done so that you don't do that.
Or carry it over if it's gonna get done. If it's something that
And that's what I
you
did,
were waiting on contracts and obviously the money has to get carried over, then that's understandable.
and that's what I did.
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
But that's what you're saying now, that this didn't get done. So the SBR panel didn't get done because they skyrocketed it because they gave me a proposal and didn't explain it until after the proposal was done, that it wasn't a hot backup, that it was a single train, which you can't have for the system. You can't have it because it's gonna go down, the treatment plant's gonna be dead, and we're gonna be waiting for parts to come in to fix it.
Mhm.
Unless you wanna buy a complete second set to have on the shelf for spare parts, which costs more than doing it the right way in the first time. So I had to have them repropose it, and it came in at
Well, that happens, right, yeah,
30,000.
okay, that's understandable.
Okay, same thing with
That's
the
understandable.
filter rehab. I put it out to bid. I got prices. Nobody bid the same thing.
Mhm.
So one came in and bid. He was only doing both at once. You can't do both at once because I need one running while we're rehabbing the other one.
Right.
So I've got to
I mean, if
get
it comes in a bid,
people to
something comes in
compare
higher, then-
apples to apples.
That's why we have 2 meetings a year, because then now you can transfer out of retained earnings to supplement whatever that was. So if somebody comes in, if we budget $100,000 on a project, whatever it might be, and it comes in at 120, and we only budgeted 100, then obviously we need, at the next meeting, fall town meeting, you need to transfer the out of retained earnings and explain why we got this contract and it's $30,000 more than what we had budgeted for, and then money gets transferred. And that happens, that's just normal course of business. But that's not gonna help us where we're at right now. I think what we need now is just to get like we talked about, get all available revenue, put a balanced budget together, and then,
So do you want a base budget or whatever we started with this time? Because like I said, these are all, in my opinion, recurring costs that are gonna happen and should happen over the next
I
10
want
to
a
15
balanced
years.
budget. I want a balanced budget. And over 15 years, you said?
Yeah.
Well, that obviously is a bigger discussion, not to try to stick into a FY '25 budget. If it's over 15 years, then obviously that needs to be the bigger picture we just talked about earlier on a obviously it's gonna be a borrowing and all.
There's $8,000 or $10,000 pumps. I'm not gonna do a borrowing for a $10,000
No,
pump.
I thought you said a
I'm
big
telling
project. I
you.
thought you said big project. bigger projects.
I'm telling you that there's, I got estimated at 7,500, but like this one, you got a $30,000 pump. It's a bigger pump.
I think you need to just look at the budget, get the available revenue. You know what, you're the manager, you know what it needs, we know what the priorities are on the, what needs to get done. And then the bigger discussion needs to be with that asset, particularly that asset management plan and some of these big items that I haven't seen some of these.
Well, and I think some of this discussion with a few of these items could, if for this current fiscal year, is where are we at, where's it tracking for this year? So where's revenue tracking?
Right.
And where are we at now? So and I'm not a big fan of the end of year spending spree, but, you know, are a few of these items able to do at the end of this fiscal year, you know? So like we've had the tree issues. Well, that landscaping money that I put in, then maybe we use some of that for that or something.
That's right, the expenses we can move
But,
around, the salary.
but if we have, you know, and I had said this a while ago and never really pursued it, but maybe each month we should have a revenue report, you know? So I have a monthly P&L, so to speak, that I get, and I'm given it, and then I have to present it to corporate. And really what we highlight is the top line and then the bottom line, and then the anomalies is what the discussion revolves around. So if we can get into maybe that top line, bottom line sort of thing, but we have all of great expense reports and stuff, but we never have a good revenue report. So maybe monthly meeting, that becomes a report that we get, you know, from Gene or what have you, for the revenue report, where we're at up to that point, and then next month where we're at up to that point. Because you talk about pulling from retained earnings left and right during this discussion, but I don't have a clue sitting here what's even in retained earnings. You know, is it $100,000? Is it $1 million? Is it
Wow,
$2 million? I don't even know where we're at.
It's broke out into buckets.
Yeah, so I think the revenue report is missing from this.
And the only difference between
Discussion.
the private sector and this is we only bill twice a year, so that'll be the two big revenue.
Right.
On the
But we're collecting all year long.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, I haven't paid my excise tax yet, so, you know, if they were doing a revenue report, well, they're gonna be short a few $100 on my excise tax. You know what I mean? Versus then the next month, say they were gonna look at that, well, then they would see, you know, an increase in the revenue, the collections, you know? So,
Yeah.
so I think the revenue report would be helpful and maybe, you know, may spur us to be a little more proactive with consistent lower rate increases versus having to do a large jump all at once to cover this. So and the PRV is in here, so that's one item that's on that capital list. There's one PRV in here budgeted, so.
I mean, you and I have gone over that many times when we get down towards the end of the year and we look at things and say, provided the revenue supports it, just because we budget for it doesn't mean we can spend it if we don't have the revenue to support the budget. But we've talked about it when we get close to the end of the year, if there's things that we can, like, well, I know we used to do that with propane, filling up the,
Right.
Fill up.
Propane, chemicals.
Yeah, things like
There's line items,
chemicals,
we can
yeah.
try to top it off before
Right.
the end of the year. Yeah.
right, and use up, provided the revenue supports it, that has to balance. And Gene is all over that all the time, so.
Propane's a bad example because I'm not going to top off propane.
Yeah.
I want to run it out and
Yeah.
I want to switch to gas before next winter.
So I just think we just,
That'll help stabilize that because that'll be a steady regular bill as opposed to, you know, we
Yeah.
started a season, a quarter with an empty tank or a full tank or whatever, but
Well, it'd be nice to get one bill versus our electric. Those bills still baffle me. We have 3 electric bills.
oh, I know. So, how we, so then basically get us a balanced budget, that, because you're gonna need to get to FinCom, they're gonna want a balanced budget.
mm-hmm.
to approve as well, to go over.
Like I said, normally we figure out what's gonna be in the budget, and then I tell you the available funding sources, what we anticipate from user fees and charges,
Right,
what we have to pull from retained earnings, what we pull
Yep.
from system development.
yep,
But I don't go through and create those numbers ahead of time and then plug in what we want to fit the numbers. Come up with the numbers, what we're gonna fix, do, and then I'll tell you what we have for available funds, so.
well, I think we usually say we have this much, 'cause I made a note, how we did that, one of those. Maybe it was this year, I mean, 2023, when we were doing stuff, I could say, he gave us the numbers, okay, so we had like a
So if you look at the,
600 free
I
cash,
didn't include it in this one because
So,
it makes the
this
print
is all-
smaller,
yeah,
but the current one that we do, if you look at these sheets from the last one, not the current one. At the bottom of that, I had it broken down where the funds would be from.
on which one?
Look at one of the previous ones with these sheets.
This one here, this is the only one that, this was the first
Yeah.
one, this was the first round that we had.
I'm gonna cut it off and make it fit on the sheet. But I have it down here that takes all these numbers and breaks out what.
Okay, well, I haven't seen that.
I'll print it, but you won't be able to see them.
I haven't seen anything to how to fund the budget, that's part of my
Yeah, like I
problem.
said,
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna give you those numbers until we figured out what we're funding, and then I tell you what we have for funding sources.
Well, I kinda. I think to build a budget, you need to know what you have for available revenue.
This number's not gonna add up because I didn't finalize the numbers yet. So that's what's actually on the bottom of my spreadsheet, but as you can see, it
For-
makes the print much smaller.
Which one was this for? For the 221?
So this number is based on the
Which-
816. I changed these numbers.
No, which, 'cause I'm looking at the paperwork, which dated paperwork?
This is the current one that I just.
Okay, so for
just
313?
printed. Yeah, but this number isn't gonna match that 18.6, the 1860. It matches the 1816. So I haven't updated these numbers yet. Like I said, I have this.
1816, that's last year's budget.
That's what I'm telling you. I haven't updated those numbers because we didn't finalize the budget. When I finalize the budget, I will adjust those numbers based on what we have. I cut it off so that it's not there and makes the print this small. So once we finalize the numbers that we agree on here, then I go in and do this.
Yeah, this whole bottom sheet is off of last.
That's what I'm telling you,
that's
I
all
did
last
not
year's
adjust it from this
Yeah.
budget. I didn't adjust it because I don't have a set number. You guys were still making decisions. We added stuff today, we took stuff off today. So you want me to give
Well, I
you?
know, but I'm telling you, I mean, to change 288,000 from yesterday, from this one to the one that you gave me an hour ago.
Right, none of this is even included in this budget.
No.
That's what I'm saying. I
sorry.
needed to get
I'm sorry,
numbers.
not this one. Oh, this is the one.
Yeah, that's the one.
That would
None of
change-
this,
change
none of this is
288,000.
included in this budget.
So, but the debt number you would have,
Right,
But
but
that-
I haven't changed any
you
of it
haven't
because
changed
this
up
is
to date.
something I do after I get our numbers finalized. I'm
Right.
not gonna go in and recalculate numbers and figure out where all the funding's
No,
coming
but
from
you don't have to-
36 different times.
we're not gonna recalculate, you're gonna say, this is what's available. We don't have to spend it, we say, this is what's available. This is what we have in retained earnings, this is what we have in system development. And then pick and choose what recommend what you can use that money for, because obviously it has to be used for specific things.
Mm-hmm.
And then give us the budget and say, yeah, this is what I went through, we have this much money in retained earnings, we have this much money in system development, we have this much money in number of the buckets that they have.
That's not how I typically put it together, because I don't wanna say all this money's available, so we've got $1.2 million in retained earnings, and then for me to sit here and say, well, we got the money, why aren't we doing all this?
Well, no, I wouldn't wanna do that either.
So that's
I'd like
why
to
I
know-
wait, and then I say, all right, we don't have funds available,
Well,
and
you
we
gotta-
have to change
You
it.
gotta be responsible about the numbers, you don't just bankrupt it every year, you say
Right.
we gotta have it, maintain a
Which is-
balance of,
So I typically
this.
don't just put together everything that's available until I come up with the numbers, which we still haven't even finalized what you consider a base budget. So when we finalize that, then I'll put the numbers in here.
yeah, I don't consider this a base budget that you gave us tonight. That, to me, it's not a base budget. To me, this is a budget without,
Without
Some-
any of the
without-
stuff that needs to be done.
no, some of the bigger things that are in here, because you have some things that, like you have meters and things in this, that's built into this.
But meters are standard, every year we buy meters. We know that meters die, we have meters that are going in for new construction.
I know that, but we increased it, because, and it says that your reasoning of increasing by 15,000 was Neptune radios and meter pits. So, okay, I understand that. So there's still things built in here that's like, some of the stuff on this isn't built in here, but there's a lot of other things that is still built in here. You have PRV built in here, that's, you put one in, and there's some on here. So that, to me, that's not you still have a lot of things built into this that these ones haven't made it onto what you're proposing. And I'm assuming you did that because of available revenue. That was my thought process. Well, this is what he obviously knows, we have available revenue of this amount to put that into a budget, either retained earnings.
No, that's not what these were, the PRV, at least one of those needs to get replaced. Otherwise, we don't have a functioning system that's gonna go between the two systems. So I have to get at least one of them working correctly.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
one thing off of this list.
Yeah,
And I assume the same thing with the Davis Street pump here. Because it was under capital, we've got Davis Street pump. So we added 5,000 at it to make it, and that's one of the pumps listed here. So
I
there's,
thought we already bought that Davis Street
I
pump.
haven't bought a Davis Street, we budgeted for it.
yeah,
I haven't bought it, cause when we budgeted for it, by the time we budgeted for it, the price went up $8,000, so we didn't budget enough money to buy it.
so, but that's in here too, so that there's a couple items in here.
In PRV, we've talked about that I think we talked about that, that's the one up on 16 across from
Booster.
the booster, yeah.
I've discussed that multiple times, and
Yeah.
we have never budgeted to get it replaced.
I think that was budgeted in 21. I was actually looking through some of that stuff earlier today, just to familiarize on some of the projects that was in there. So I remember I put, when I broke out the budget, I put little side notes on everything, what it was for.
I would have to look at that to see if I had that budgeted previously. I know we did get a quote on it one time, and when he quoted it, it was furnish and install, but then he came back saying, oh, that was only the cost of material. I didn't mean to say furnish, the labor's separate, so that was a little off.
Well, I would, in instances like that, again, if it's something that jumps up, if we budget for it and if the cost jumped up or we didn't account for something properly, then that would be a transfer at fall town meeting. So if it's budgeted, if it's planned to get done, I would just not stop doing obviously if it's a huge number, then if we don't have the revenue, then we can't do that, but.
Well, I can't sign the contract if I don't have a funding source.
Yeah.
So I can't sign the contract until we go to fall town meeting.
Right.
But something like the filters,
Yeah,
by the time we get to fall town meeting, now I can't do it because you can't do it when it's cold. The epoxy won't stick.
yeah. So we'd have to just encumber that money remember what we had budgeted, and then do the,
But when I encumber it, now Gene's gonna say you encumbered this, but it wasn't enough to cover what it was.
mhm.
So that's why typically when I have something like that I don't have the money to cover it, I just don't do it that year, and then I budget the next year, and then that money just goes back to retained earnings. So that's some of the mindset behind,
Well, then, so then when you do
Doing
the
it in those
budget, just
methods.
simply tell us, I budgeted for that, I was 10,000 short, we couldn't do it. So you'll see the number,
And that's what I told you.
that's what has increased.
that's what
And
I
then-
said.
and
I know I had the discussion on the Davis Street pump station,
Yeah.
that we didn't budget enough. So when I got the quote, it was 19, we budgeted 20, came back almost 30. So that's why I said, that will go back to retained earnings, I'm budgeting again this year, and we'll purchase it this year.
Mhm.
That's the way I explained it.
Which is fine, then you go back to the zero bit, go back to the base, and then say, I didn't do it last year because of this, and now we added it in. That's-
Right. And that's what
That's-
I've done,
yes.
that's what I did previously.
Or, so in a lot of cases, in that case, and you say, okay, we budgeted 20, and it came in as 30, but it had something else that came under, you can use it to do it that way, or some other project that we have listed that you see that's gonna come into next year's budget, and you have enough money to do it at that point. I
Yep.
mean, you can make that decision and say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna nip this in the bud this year, because we have enough revenue, I don't have enough of that, and I'll just switch things around and do that next year. And that's your decision, we don't
Yeah,
get involved too much in that stuff.
I know, that's how I typically try to do it.
All right. So my suggestion is just to get the available revenue, put together a budget with what, prioritized with the available revenue that, and you have a better handle on what you know you're gonna need.
Mhm.
I mean, you're asking us about a pump that, yeah, I know pumps are important in this business, but there might be something else that's more important. I don't know.
That's why I explained over the years, is there's projects that I hold off on. If something else comes up, it takes priority, that gets pushed off, we add it to the budget next year,
Yeah,
and things get moved around.
yeah. But just show it when we do the budget, just show it and say, this is what happened here. Go back and say, this is the base budget on that, which we know the historical number is always gonna come in, but I didn't do that last year, but I'm putting it back in. We use that money on another project that we did, something happened, there's always things that happen, you're dealing with, in this business, things break unexpectedly, you can't account for.
So do you want me to change it
I would,
to go, like I said, where I think certain things should be every year budgeted and part of the rates, as opposed to breaking them out every year? Because if I buy a waste pump this year,
if you have a reoccurring expense that you know you're gonna get it every year, then that should be in a reoccurring expense category, that should be in,
but like I said,
A
it's not
base.
recurring as a waste pump. This year it's a waste pump, next year it's post-EQ pump, the year after that it's a decant pump. So it's a different pump, it's a different thing every year, but it is a recurring expense that I can anticipate we should be spending to get
So
us to where we
let's-
should be.
Let's do this, I mean, there's, obviously, we're working off of Gene's quote budget and stuff, but, maybe for our own purposes, we need to have sub-buckets, and we have a pump bucket. And so some years we need, a $30,000 pump, and then the next year, maybe we only need a $7,500 pump. But we have a pump bucket, type thing, I mean, it's just another way to look at it, that each year we're gonna need some sort of a pump or something like that, versus something like, generators, well, that's a capital item, because we should be able to get 10, 15, if not 20 years out of a generator.
are the pumps, that they vary in, the cost of the pumps, do they vary substantially?
Yeah, like I said, 7,500 to 30,000.
Well, then it's not it's a reoccurring expense, but
I'm just
to
saying that
Keith's
we
point, it
should
be-
budget.
It should be in a
But that's
separate
what I'm
line
saying.
item then.
we should budget for a pump every year. Yes, the price is gonna be a little off every year. This year it's 75, next year it's 30. It's gonna vary, but it's not, it's something that should be factored into rates. You're gonna be buying a
Oh,
pump.
yeah, absolutely,
But
yeah.
it's not gonna be the same pump every year. But we have enough pumps that you should anticipate you're gonna need a
Pump
pump.
every year, right. So that should be built, that should be built in.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. But we've
But
been pulling
obviously-
them out
but
because I don't
if you
buy
got a-
that same
if
pump.
you got a-
every
If you got a $30,000 pump, and you know in that line item for that coming forward, if most of the pumps are $10,000, and you got one that's gonna be 30, then you obviously explain that in the budget and say, typically the line item for that is $30,000, but this particular pump that we're getting this year is $50,000.
Right.
So that's why that jumped up to that, and then, but next year it's gonna drop back down to the normal. There's only 2 pumps at that expense, and the rest of them are all pretty consistent at whatever they come in at.
Right, but if I was setting rates,
Mhm.
like I said, I would come up with it. We got 15 pumps. I'll tell you what the 15 pumps cost divided by 15, and that's what you should be setting for your rates. We buy a cheaper pump this year, the excess money goes in, it's gonna count towards the year after. You know what I mean? So you factor that into your rates, not at the $7,500 pump and not at the $30,000 pump.
Oh, you
Take the average of the
out.
15 of them, divided by 15 years, that's what the average is. Set your rate at that. Yeah, you're gonna be behind this year if we buy a $30,000 pump. So you pull it out of retained earnings, but it'll make up for it over the next
Right, but
couple.
you gotta account for that, cause some of them are in the particular line item in the budget.
Right, that's where I come up with these numbers here, and I tell you, yeah, we're shortfall because we bought the more expensive pump this year.
Hmm.
I'm just saying,
But something else has to get decreased in order to do that.
no, like I said, that's what you have retained earnings for, to cover that. If I bought the expensive pump this year, you're gonna pull it from retained earnings. And over the next 15 years, you're gonna slowly gain that money back into retained earnings.
I thought you didn't wanna do that.
What do you mean I don't wanna do
I
that?
thought you didn't want, you said that should be built in, it shouldn't come out of retained earnings.
The one-time expense, like, all right, so I'll go the other way. I buy the $30,000 pump in year 15, but in year 1 through 14, you're going to be collecting $10,000 instead of $7,500, and that $1,500 or $2,500 is going to go into retained earnings. And on that 15th year, I'm pulling out of retained earnings to cover that $30,000 pump. Overall, in the 15 years, it averages out, and the rates paid.
I know, but you know what happens in municipal government is that the money's sitting in there somewhere, it could get spent for something else.
Oh,
That's-
we're not the town. We're not the.
You could budget, you could say we're gonna budget for this, and this, and that account's gonna be set up, and then something comes along, we're running short, we need money for salaries, we got a tight year on this, and whoop, that's gone. So that's how,
But if you need that money for something else in our department, it's not like we don't say,
I mean, we don't
oh,
run
there's money
retained
left over,
earnings,
so
right.
hurry up
We
and
don't.
spend it all because we won't get it back
right,
next
we don't,
year.
we
That's
don't,
not how
we
it
don't,
works.
we don't
Right,
run,
yeah.
we don't run retained earnings right down to,
That's what I mean, and we use
Yeah,
retained
right.
earnings because we know it's not a recurring expense or
right.
it's a one-time expense, and that's what the purpose of it's for.
Yeah, I wouldn't wanna use it for retained earnings. I mean, I wouldn't wanna use retained earnings for that if it's gonna be, if you're budgeting every year, that should be built into the rates, I
I'm
agree.
just saying the retained earnings portion of that is because you have varying prices, and in order to set a rate, you know it's gonna be this expense over this period. If I say I'm buying a $30,000 pump this
Well-
year, we're not gonna do the rates and base it on a $30,000 pump that you're gonna raise rates to cover.
No.
So figure out the average, and over the period, it's gonna even out,
Right,
it's gonna
and
pay.
you're right, and you take it out of retained earnings if that.
Just to cover
year
that one
yeah.
lump, I
That
mean,
1 year.
Yeah. To balance the budget
right,
is what you're trying to.
that's what I'm
right.
saying. And we know that revenue is gonna come in slowly over the next few years
Yeah.
to offset that. So we don't raise the rates again because we had one bigger expense one,
No,
we already
we don't.
factored it in.
No, that's what retained earnings for. Or for, something happens that unexpectedly, or if we've got a project coming down the line that we know, we can use that money for, instead of borrowing, retained earnings increases better than projected. We can do a project without borrowing, like we have,
We've done many projects,
Yeah.
all the projects in the last
right?
10 years or so, we've done
with predominantly with systems, well, it's all retained earnings, but.
Right, but it's just either through system development money or what we got for retained earnings. You know, Brewster Station was done without borrowing, that was done from retained earnings.
Yeah.
Some of the engineering for these other projects we've done without rates, you know, we did it through retained earnings, so. Alright, so you wanna know all the sources of money and go from there.
Yep, and then put together, so it's a balanced budget, so you know that this budget next week that you go to FinCom with, if they ask you because I'm sure they must ask you the revenue as well, and they're gonna wanna see how it's being funded. You can say, well, this is getting funded, for, just like the articles always say, tells you exactly, you know, what 100, like this one says, for example, this one was 1.5, I'll say, town hall raise and appropriate and transfer sum of,
Well, use the one I just printed, it's last year's, exactly.
that was 1.8.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have breakout, right, 125 system development, 105 from retained earnings, 125,
I put
Reserve
those
for
there
debt.
because that's what I used for the
Right.
article,
right, that's, yeah,
that's how I,
but I'm assuming that's what FinCom's gonna wanna see that too,
Yeah.
and I wanna see that before I approve a budget, I wanna know where
Right.
it's being funded.
but we didn't go through with all the numbers and get them finalized yet, so I didn't prepare all those numbers because I didn't have the numbers that I was working, I'm not gonna do it backwards and say,
No,
I got 1.9 million to work with, so I'm gonna add all these other things into the budget.
How come we sit here and do a budget when we don't know how much money we get to use? How can I tell you I wanna do this, and this? Oh, you know, you recommend saying do this,
I didn't
this,
wanna
and
write
this.
my budget backwards saying, I got this much money available, I'm gonna put all this into the budget. So I wanted to come up with what we had for a budget number first, and then I'll tell you how I fund it. And if we're short on it, then I'll tell you we need to do something about rates or cut the budget. One or the other.
Yeah,
I mean, I can tell you we have enough money,
I
we
think,
can fund this budget, and I can add a bunch of the stuff from that list. Because we have money in retained earnings, we have money in system development.
But I think some of that comes into play, that what I was saying is we don't get a lot of funding reports. So that's why I was saying.
At one point, we had said we wanted the revenue and expense report each month.
yeah,
And
So,
I thought we were getting some of them, and I just pulled up a revenue report, so I know we were doing them.
yeah,
So look at January's, we have a revenue report.
yeah, I saw that. I went back and looked.
So there's a revenue and there should be an expense in there too. But that's what we were doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, so here's an expense, sure, and here's a revenue. I think that we haven't gone through them,
yeah,
we just kinda blow over them at every meeting, but I believe we were putting them in
yeah.
there.
So maybe after I just think that the revenue report is, is pretty
It's
valuable.
useful to see where you stand.
So, because that's my only concern with this is that I don't know what's the,
and I don't wanna say, let's do this, and this, and you come back, so we don't have the money for that. We need to know what we have to work with before it can be done. And, with all honesty, Bob, is most of the stuff, if you say it, if you can prioritize it, and you know what you're gonna need, you know what, better than we do,
Yep.
and just present the balanced budget to us, it would go through smoothly. And if you put in and say, these are the projects that's gonna get done, and here, based on with the rates that we currently have, here's the budget, everything broke out, here's the project's gonna get done, this is how it's gonna be funded. We'd be in and out of here in half an hour.
Well, I don't know about that, 'cause
Well,
we
maybe-
went through the
maybe
base
not.
alone
Maybe
without
not.
discussing the projects, and it took us 3 hours.
I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, I do too. But if it was all broke down and done and
So are we scheduling, scheduling another one of these before he goes to FinCom? You know when your FinCom meeting is?
so this one's no good, right? So let me get rid of this one.
26th.
That was, I don't want that one in here, so it's
So
confusing.
2 weeks from yesterday.
We'll schedule a meeting for next Tuesday?
Yeah.
I'm just pulling the date out of my head, I didn't even look at the
Next,
calendar.
I haven't either. Tuesday?
I got something next Tuesday I can't do.
Wednesday?
Maybe Wednesday.
Yeah, I can do either one. Well, we got the 18th. Oh, hi, doctor. 19th.
You're still gonna be cross-eyed from the 17th?
I know. That one was funny.
So I can do Wednesday or Thursday. Or Friday.
You good for the 20th, Bob? Wednesday? Next Wednesday?
Yeah, I should be all set for that.
Okay.
What's the date on it, you said?
March 20th.
20th.
20th? Yeah, I should
I'm
be all set for
gonna
that.
put that in here, so 20th, sewer.
You guys pick the time.
7 o'clock.
Just lucky Wednesday's not a good TV night.
What time?
7
7?
o'clock.
7?
Yeah.
Can you make the motion?
Yeah.
You make a
Anything else on the
motion?
agenda?
Nope.
Nothing that we need to. Nothing that can't get put off.
Alright, make motion.
Make a motion that we adjourn the meeting at 5:36.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.